Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. The way countries buy and sell goods with each other is seeing a major change. The United States has introduced a new set of rules for trade. This new plan was announced by the President, Donald Trump, and it is a very big shift. It changes America's relationship with almost every other country in the world. The plan is about new taxes on products that are imported into the United States. These taxes are called tariffs. The new tariffs will be placed on most goods that come from other nations. This is a significant event in global trade. For many years, the United States followed a different path. For decades, the main idea was to make trade easier and more open between countries. This was known as globalization. Under this system, there were fewer taxes on imported goods. This policy helped many American businesses, especially in the services sector. The American services economy became very successful and was admired by other countries. But this open trade had another side. It made it difficult for American factories to compete with factories in other countries. Over time, the manufacturing part of the economy became smaller, and many jobs were lost. The new plan is a direct response to this long decline. President Trump's new tariff plan marks a clear break from the past. It is a reversal of the policies that were in place for a very long time. The new focus is on protecting American jobs and industries from foreign competition. The idea is that higher taxes on imported goods will encourage people to buy more American-made products. This change shows a new way of thinking about America's place in the world economy. It is a move toward a more protectionist policy. The new rules were announced in a surprising way. The details were released very late, only a few hours before a deadline was met. This sudden news made many people and businesses pay close attention. They needed to understand what the new rules meant for them. Companies that import goods from other countries were especially interested. They had to figure out how their costs would change. This book will help you understand this new tariff plan. It will explain the rules in a simple way. We will explore what tariffs are and how they work. We will also look at how this new policy is different from the American trade policies of the past. Learning about this is important because trade affects everyone. It affects the prices of things we buy and the jobs people have. It is an important lesson about how the modern world is connected. The next chapters will guide you through the details of this new era in global trade. 2. What are new tariffs? A tariff is a special kind of tax. It is a tax on goods that come into a country from another country. When products arrive in the United States from other places, the government can add a tariff. This makes the products more expensive. The new plan creates new tariffs for almost every country in the world. These new rules are a big change for how countries trade with America. This chapter will explain how these new tariffs work. The new plan has two main tariff rates. One rate is 10%, the other rate is 15%. The rate a country pays depends on its trade relationship with the United States. Now, to understand the new rates, we need to look at how much a country sells to the U.S. and how much it buys from the U.S. This trade relationship decides the new tax. First, let's understand a trade surplus. A trade surplus happens when the United States sells more goods to a country than it buys from that country. For example, if the U.S. sells $100 of products to country A, but only buys $50 of products from country A, the U.S. has a trade surplus with that country. The new rule says that countries with a trade surplus will pay the lower tariff. Their tariff rate will be 10%. This rate applies to most countries. Next, let's look at a trade deficit. A trade deficit is the opposite of a trade surplus. It happens when the United States buys more goods from a country than it sells to that country. For example, if the U.S. buys $200 of products from country B, but only sells $75 of products to country B, the U.S. has a trade deficit. These countries will pay a higher tariff. Their new tariff rate will be at least 15%. This 15% rate is the new minimum tax for many trading partners. About 40 countries will have to pay this new 15% tariff on the goods they sell to the U.S. For some of these nations, this tax is lower than it was before, but for a few other countries, it is a higher tax. The new plan sets this 15% rate as the starting tax for any country that has a trade deficit with the United States. It is also important to know that for some countries, the tariffs are even higher than 15%. The next chapter will look at these countries and explain why their rates are different. But for most nations, the new rules are based on the 10% and 15% rates. These rules depend completely on their trade balance with the United States. This new system changes how America does business with the rest of the world. 3. Countries with high tariffs. Not all countries pay the 10 or 15% tariff. Some nations must pay a much higher price to sell their goods in the United States. The U.S. government has identified over 25 countries that will face these higher import taxes. The main reason for these special, higher rates is the trade relationship each country has with America. Officials say these specific countries have very large trade deficits. This means that the value of goods they sell to the U.S. is much bigger than the value of goods they buy from the U.S. This trade imbalance is the official reason for the higher tariffs. The list of countries with high tariffs is long, and the specific rates are different for each one. Some of the tariffs are extremely high. For example, any goods coming into the U.S. from Syria will have a 41% tax added to their cost. Goods from the Asian countries of Laos and Myanmar are not far behind, with a 40% tariff. Switzerland, a country in Europe, has a 39% tariff. Other nations, such as Iraq and Serbia, must pay a 35% tariff on their products. Countries like Algeria, Libya, and South Africa all share a 30% tariff rate. Many other nations are also on this list with slightly lower, but still significant tariffs. For example, the tariff for India is 25%. This is the same rate for several other countries, including Brunei, Kazakhstan, Moldova, and Tunisia. A different group of countries has a 20% tariff. This group includes Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Taiwan, and Vietnam. Another large group of Asian countries all face a 19% tariff. This group is made up of Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and the Philippines. The lowest rate on this special high tariff list belongs to Nicaragua, which has an 18% tax. The United States' direct neighbors, Canada and Mexico, are also affected by high tariffs. However, their situation is a little more complex. The high tariffs only apply to certain goods. Products that are included in the special free trade agreement between the three countries do not have these extra taxes. For Mexico, the tariff on goods not covered by the agreement is 25%. The government agreed to keep this rate for another 90 days to allow for more talks. For Canada, the tariff on its non-exempt goods is now higher. It increased from 25% to 35%. This shows how complex the new tariff rules are, even for the closest trading partners. 4. When tariffs begin, many people and businesses were waiting for the new tariffs to begin. Everyone believed the new rules would start on August 1st. This was the date that the government first announced. Companies that import goods into the country were getting ready for this big change. They knew that on that Friday, the taxes on many products would go up. There was a lot of discussion about this important deadline. It was a key moment for trade between the United States and other nations. Everyone was watching and waiting for the new policy to start. But just before the deadline, there was a surprise. Late on Thursday night, the government made a new announcement. The message said that the new tariffs would not start on Friday, as everyone expected. This news changed the plans for many businesses. They had prepared for the August 1st start date. Now, they had to understand what this new information meant for them. The sudden change showed that these new trade rules could be unpredictable. It was a last-minute decision that affected many people. The new announcement gave a clear new date for the tariffs. The government said the new rules would now begin on August 7th. This was about 1 week later than the original date. This new timeline was official. It meant that all the new tariff rates would go into effect on that day. So, while there was a delay, it was not a very long one. The new trade policy was still coming very soon. Businesses now had a new, firm date to focus on for their planning. The main reason for the delay was practical. The government offices that manage imports needed more time to prepare. These offices are called customs offices. Their job is to check all the goods that arrive at the country's borders. They are also responsible for collecting the tariffs, which are taxes on these imported goods. With so many new tariff rates for different countries, this was a very big and complex task. The government wanted to give these offices enough time to be ready. Changing the entire tariff system is a lot of work. The customs offices use special computer systems to do their job. They needed time to update these systems with all the new rules. For example, a product from one country might have a 10% tariff, but a product from another country might have a 25% tariff. The customs workers needed to have the correct information for every item. Giving them 7 more days helped them make sure they could collect the right amount of tax when the new rules started. This extra time was necessary to avoid mistakes. 5. Trade deals and tariffs. The new tariffs are not the same for all countries. Special agreements can change the rules for certain nations. These agreements are called trade deals. When countries make a trade deal, they can agree to lower tariffs on the goods they sell to each other. This means that talks between leaders are very important in deciding the final tax. Some of the biggest trading partners have these special deals. For example, the United Kingdom and China made agreements with the United States. Because of these deals, their tariff rates did not change on the day other tariffs went up. This shows that having a deal can protect a country from new, higher taxes on its goods. However, these deals are not always for a long time. The trade deal with China, for instance, expires in less than 2 weeks. After it ends, the tariffs on Chinese goods could go up. This means the situation can change very quickly. Mexico is another good example. The U.S. planned to raise tariffs on some Mexican goods to 30%. This was a very high rate. But then, the leaders of the two countries had an important conversation. They agreed to wait. Mexico's old tariff rate was extended for another 90 days. This shows that talking can stop a tariff increase, at least for a while. It gives both sides more time to find a solution. The European Union also made a deal. Without an agreement, goods from the European Union were going to have a 30% tariff. This would make things like cars and food from Europe much more expensive for Americans to buy. But they reached an agreement over a weekend. The new deal calls for a 15% tariff on most goods. This is still higher than the old 10% rate that was in place before, but it is much better than the 30% tariff they almost had to pay. Other countries also have similar deals. Goods from South Korea and Japan will also be taxed at a 15% rate because of their own agreements. These special deals show that the new trade plan has many different parts. The tariff a country pays is not always based on the general rule. It can depend on the special relationship and the agreements it has with the United States. These talks and deals are a key part of the new trade policy. 6. Are tariffs right? Many people are asking an important question: are these new tariffs legal? This is not a simple question to answer. The president has the power to do many things, but some people think creating these tariffs is not one of them. Because of this disagreement, the new tariff plan is now being discussed in court. Judges are looking at the rules to decide if the president has the correct authority. The government says the president can set these tariffs because of a special law. This law is for times of a national emergency. It gives the president special economic powers. However, some courts do not agree. In May, a court said the president used more power than the law gives him. Now, a higher court is looking at the case. The judges in this new court also seem to have many questions. They are not sure the president's actions are correct. One big problem is that the special emergency law does not talk about tariffs. The law was not written for this purpose. This is the first time a president has used this law to create tariffs on so many countries. The judges also questioned the reason for the emergency. The president said that trade deficits are the emergency. A trade deficit is when the United States buys more from a country than it sells to it. One judge asked how this can be a special emergency. The United States has had trade deficits for many decades. It is not a new problem. It will take time to get an answer from the court. The decision could take many weeks or even months. After this court makes a decision, the case could go to an even higher court, the Supreme Court. This means the legal questions about the tariffs will not go away soon. While the courts decide, the government can still use other rules to change trade. The debate is complex, and many people are waiting to see what the judges will say. The final decision will be very important for the future of trade with the United States. 7. What might happen next? It is hard to know what will happen with the new tariffs. The future is not clear because plans can change very quickly. The government has changed its trade rules before, so it is possible it will change them again. This makes it difficult for other countries and businesses to prepare. One important question is about the start date for the tariffs. The date has already changed one time. The new tariffs were expected to start on a Friday. However, the government made a new announcement. It said the tariffs will now start on August 7th. This delay gives import offices more time to get ready. It also shows that the government's plans are not always final. Things can be moved or changed. We have seen this kind of sudden change happen before. A similar event took place in April. At that time, the president also raised the taxes on many goods from other countries. This was a big and sudden change. It made many people in business very worried. They were afraid it could cause problems for the global economy. But then, only a few hours after the new April tariff started, the president decided to delay them. He stopped the new rules from happening. He then set a new deadline for August 1st. This past event shows that even when a rule is announced, it might not stay the same. Because of this history, we know that new information can come at any time. A new announcement could appear suddenly, perhaps in a message on social media. This message could change all the plans again. The new tariff rates that were just announced could be different tomorrow. Nothing feels certain for the people who trade with the United States. So, what does this mean for the future? The president has said that he will not delay the tariffs again. He says the new rules will definitely begin on the new date. But he has said things like this before and then changed the plan later. It is possible that the deadlines could be extended one more time. It is also possible that the tariff rates for some countries could change again. The situation is very unpredictable. This makes it hard for everyone to plan for what is next in global trade. 8. Tariffs and prices. New tariffs are a kind of tax. Governments put these taxes on goods that come from other countries. These new rules can change how much you pay for things you buy in stores. When the government puts a tariff on a product, like a television or a shirt, that product can become more expensive. This chapter explains how the new tariffs might affect the prices of everyday items and the money in your pocket. Let's look at how this works. Imagine a company in America buys shoes from another country. The new rules add a tariff or tax to these shoes when they arrive. For example, some countries now face a 15% tax. This means the American company must pay this extra tax on the shoes it imports. The company now has a higher cost. To keep making money, the company will probably add this extra cost to the price of the shoes. So when you go to the store, the shoes may be more expensive. This can happen with thousands of different products. This is not just an idea. Some very large companies have already said that prices will go up. Big stores like Walmart, where many people shop, have warned that tariffs will force them to raise prices. Also, companies that make things we use all the time, like Procter & Gamble, have said the same thing. This is important because when these big companies change their prices, it affects millions of families. People may find that their weekly shopping costs more than it did before. When prices for many goods and services rise over time, it is called inflation. It means your money buys less than it used to. Tariffs can be a cause of this. If the costs of many imported goods go up, prices in the shops will also go up. In the past, after other tariffs were introduced, prices stayed mostly the same. But the new tariffs are different. For many countries, the tax is now higher. Many experts believe these higher rates will make a bigger difference and could lead to more inflation. The effects of tariffs can be wider than just the prices in stores. Higher prices mean people have less money to spend on other things. This can slow down the whole economy. Some business leaders also worry that the new tariffs create an uncertain future. They do not know if the tariff rates will change again. This makes it difficult for them to plan and invest in their companies. These trade rules are a very big change, and their final impact on prices and jobs is something everyone will be watching carefully.